DIY Decor. Today I'm going to be sharing some fun candle making projects and little tips and tricks along the way. That includes everything from thrifting containers to wood wicks versus cotton wicks and adding scents, even sprinkles. Before I get started, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd love for you to join the community, so please be sure to hit that subscribe button below. When choosing a container for your candles, mason jars tend to be pretty popular because they're inexpensive and easy to use. But if you're looking for something more unique and personalized, I recommend stopping by the thrift store and seeing what kinds of containers they have there. I found this one at the thrift store for 99 cents, so pretty cheap. And it has a really cool shape, kind of this tulip shape around it. The one thing that I'm not super excited about is the color, and I'm not really a big fan of the design on the front. So I'm actually going to use some paints and make this more personalized. So first I'm going to paint it with a white acrylic paint, and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of baking soda to give it texture. Once that's dry, I'm going to apply a kind of blush tone color over the top of it, and that's just this Behr Paint Vintage Charm color. I'm using acrylic paint on the inside because it's water-based and non-toxic, so I don't have to worry about any weird reactions with the wax. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of baking soda at a time, just until it reaches the consistency that I like. So it's a little bit thicker, but still goes on pretty easily. Now for this candle I'm going to be using soy wax, and soy wax is great because it's pretty easy to work with. It's also eco-friendly and it burns cleanly. The way I measure how much wax I need for a container this size is first I fill it with water and measure that volume, and then I usually multiply that by about 1.5, and that gives me how much wax I need, because obviously when it melts the volume decreases. The other thing to note is the wax heat temperature. So each wax can have a different temperature at which to heat it and pour it, so just check the label for that. Now before I pour my wax, I'm just going to prepare my candle wicks, and for this candle I'm going to be using cotton ones, which are pretty standard. They're usually the least expensive and they're pretty easy to use. So one thing to keep in mind is the diameter of your container. If it's more than 3 inches, then you're going to need a second wick, and that's just to make sure that the wax burns down pretty evenly. Now to secure these in place, I'm just gonna hot glue them down. And I'm gonna use a chopstick to stick it down. I've got my fancy double boiler here, and on top is my candle wax pitcher. Now to hold the wicks in place while the wax is drying, I have this painter's stick that I drilled holes into, and these are great because you could just pick them up for free at Lowe's or Home Depot, and it does the trick. Now I'm heating up the sides of the container just before the wax goes in, so that as it cools it doesn't detach from the sides. For my next candle, I'm going to be using this tea tin, and a few years ago I bought some fancy tea in London. I thought the tin was really cool, so I decided to keep it, and I think it's going to make a really great candle. Now I'm going to be adding a scent to this candle using lavender essential oil, and for the wax I'm going to be using paraffin because it holds the scent better. And for my wicks, I'm going to be using wood wicks, which are really cool because they make a crackling sound. They also burn slowly and kind of smolder, which helps diffuse the scent more. And one thing that I've read is that wood wicks can be hard to relight and can take a lot longer subsequent times, but I haven't noticed that with this brand. I think it's really nice quality. So I'll link to their website in my video description. In each packet there's also multiple sizes so that you can get the right one for the diameter of your container. And the other great thing about wood wicks is that because of the clip that holds them in place, you actually don't need to glue it to the bottom of the container. It just is heavy enough to stay put when you pour in the wax. Once the wax cools below 160 degrees, then I just add the lavender essential oil, and per pound of wax, I add a teaspoon. Before I start the third candle, one thing I'd wish I'd done with the tea tin is sealed the edges of the inside with some caulking or other kind of sealant. As you can see, a little bit leaked out from the edges. Moving on, for this last one, instead of using a mason jar, I wanted to use this old jam jar. I thought it had a more fun shape, and honestly, it's a little bit easier to work with. Now for the inside edge, one thing that I saw that was really cool across Pinterest was people using sprinkles as decoration, and I tested a couple of different ones. What I found was that anything with a distinct shape like these stars don't really look good because the wax melts around it and distorts the shape. But regular sprinkles or these sugar sprinkles that I'm going to use today work pretty well. Now for the sprinkles to stick to the sides of the jar, the directions that I was seeing said to use corn syrup, but I don't have corn syrup at home, and I think most people don't. So I thought I would just use simple syrup instead, because most people do have sugar at home. And I just used a higher concentration of sugar than I normally would. I used 4 ounces of sugar to 2 ounces of water and melted that together to make an extra sticky adhesive for the sides of the jar. Now I'm just going to paint the inside of the jar with the simple syrup. And I'm just working my way from the bottom to the top, spreading it as evenly as I can. Sprinkles time! And I'm just shaking a bunch in and then kind of spreading it out. Now that it's pretty evenly coated, I'm just going to stick in the wood wick and pour in the wax. Now that my wax is set, I'm just going to trim the wicks down to a 1/4 inch height. This wood wick is pretty tough to cut through, so I've got my gardening shears. There we go. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some useful tidbits in this video, and if you enjoyed the video, I hope you won't be shy about hitting that like button, and I look forward to you joining me on the next one.